Hey everyone, Brian Zayn here with another Better Late Than Never review, this time of WWE's Money in the Bank 2024 PLE from the Scotiabank Arena in Toronto, Canada. Took place on July 6th. It wasn't until July 15th that I was actually able to sit down and watch the show. I've been very busy for the last week and change. The weekend that show took place, I was out of town with a family trip, and then when I came back, I then immediately did 3 nights in a row of shows here in Oregon. On Friday, I was in Portland for Prestige Wrestling Combat Clash PDX. Then the next night, I was still in Portland at DOA Pro Wrestling at the Expo Center. Very hot night there. The locker room was very, very hot and uncomfortable, but still a fun time there. And then on Sunday, we were back in Eugene, POW Pro Wrestling, doing Base Brawl 3 at PK Park. So I was a very busy guy, but man, I'm still thinking back to the things that happened on Friday with Prestige Wrestling. 1,200 people at the Viking Pavilion for Prestige's biggest show. I got to help call the action alongside Jordan Castle of some amazing matches like Alex Shelley versus Chris Sabin, and quite possibly their last indie matchup before they may get signed somewhere. That's what the scuttlebutt is at the moment. Then you had Roderick Strong and Timothy Thatcher. You had Drexel versus Danhausen. You had this 6-man all-star scramble, including guys from Prestige and West Coast Pro and Deadlock Pro Wrestling. So I got a little bit of exposure to some of the DPW guys making their West Coast debuts. It was a really great night. And of course, in the main event, I got kicked in the face by Evil Uno, as you saw in that cold open. So still stings a little bit right here. He throws a mean kick, does that Evil Uno. But hey, you know what? It was fun to look at that clip back and just hearing the referee yell, "That's Brian Zayn," right after that, I think was the highlight for me. But it was a great night of action. If you missed it, it's all up there for free on Prestige's YouTube channel. The whole shebang's up there. I'm going to provide a link to it right here in the corner and in the description. I truly believe, and this is not just me saying because I was part of the show, but I do think it was one of the best independent cards you're going to see all year. So please check that one out. And of course, for POW Pro Wrestling stuff, Base Brawl footage is going to air later in the weeks to come on POW's channel. And then also the DOA show is available on IWTV. It was truly an amazing weekend to cap off a busy time for me. It's a weekend I'm never going to forget, but now it's a Monday morning. I watched the show finally. I'm going to sit down here and give you my thoughts on Money in the Bank. I did like the opening hype package. First of all, that art style with like the spy motif for the silhouettes and the trench coats, like grabbing the briefcase. That was pretty neat to see. And they do a little dance at the end. That was kind of confusing. Also, seeing Seth Rollins handling a yo-yo, that was a kind of neat trick for him. I noticed right away when we got to the live crowd there that not everyone seemed to get the memo that it was supposed to be a whiteout night. Now, granted, like WWE only gave fans like 24 hours notice that they wanted it to be a whiteout event where all the fans will wear white t-shirts, but that's a big ask because like, how many white wrestling t-shirts do fans have in their collections? If you gave fans more time to prepare, because how many people were traveling from out of town to be there, they didn't bring white in their wardrobe. So, a bit of a mixed bag with the color scheme in the crowd there on that night, but maybe with a bit more advanced notice with these bigger shows, they can do stuff like that. It actually could be very visually impressive. The opening match of the evening is the men's Money in the Bank ladder match. You had Andrade, Carmelo Hayes, Jey Uso, LA Knight, Drew McIntyre, and Chad Gable, who only a few weeks before this apparently suffered what looked to be a gunshot wound to the temple at the hands of the debuting Wyatt Six. But here he is, fine and fancy free, looking very fresh and healthy, just 1 week after that. And then, of course, he made it here into the ladder match. And I'll get into some details in a little bit, but I will just preface this all by saying that Chad Gable is my pick for MVP of this matchup. So whatever, restorative process, whatever healing factor he has that helped him heal up from that horrific attack backstage, it clearly helped in a big way here. Gable at one point armbars Drew on the ladder. Andrade with a springboard leg drop onto Gable seemed kind of unnecessary. Was there a "We want tables" chant or a "We want Gable" chant from the crowd in Toronto? I couldn't quite tell. Melo and Andrade with a reverse Spanish fly where they just each moonsault onto the ladder. We get big CM Punk chants for Drew anytime he gets a lick of heat. They mentioned on commentary that Jey Uso's last ladder match before this was in 2015 in a tag match, which blows my mind. How has Jey Uso gone almost a decade not having wrestled in a ladder match before this? Gable given a ladder a German suplex onto Andrade, still gets a "You Still Suck" chant. LA and Gable with a sick neckbreaker spot on the side of the ladder ladder in the corner. We get Uso and Knight up top. We get dueling Yeats and Yaz. Knight pushing Andrade, which turns into a sunset flip powerbomb through the ladder bridge onto Hayes. Damn. Gable suplexing Knight into another ladder on the outside. He climbs and hangs from the carabiner, then does this all-time face plant. Jay almost has it won until Drew hucks a ladder at him, climbs, and wins. I give it 4 stars out of 5. Another really solid entry in the catalog of Money in the Bank ladder matches. A lot of really exciting and sometimes brutal-looking spots in this matchup here. Just really crazy way to start the show. Drew winning felt pretty expected. I know I predicted Jey Uso to win in my predictions post. For me, it was either he or Drew, and for me, it was kind of a coin flip because I could see either or happening. But, you know, now that we see here with Drew winning it and him promising he's going to cash in on it later in that night, we will see if that prophecy comes true. There's a commercial for The Boys on Amazon. It's one of the pervasive ads you see on this evening. Then it's time for the Intercontinental Championship match as Sami Zayn defends against Bron Breakker. Breakker, since he got drafted to Raw earlier in the year, has just been running roughshod through his opponents and pretty much everyone in general who gets in his way. He was very upset about not being in King of the Ring, so he puts on this mean streak. He takes Ricochet out on his way out of the company, and now he's got Sami Zayn in his crosshairs, the perennial underdog going against this big, young killing machine. What's going to happen? I do love seeing Braun picking up that speed when he hits the ropes, laying in the Steiner line. Suplexes for Sami, but the champ fights back with a DDT. Sami going for a moonsault off the barricade is almost kind of saved in midair by Braun during that catch. He looks to thread the needle through the turnbuckle, but Braun clotheslines him instead on the outside. Like I said a minute ago, I love the way Braun just executes some of the most, basic maneuvers and stuff. The way he hits those ropes, the way he does the Frankensteiner, and he does a little lean back before he just snaps into it and does that thing off the top. That was just really cool to see. Braun still looking really strong here, clotheslining Sami off the apron. Sami suckers Braun into an exploder. The first haluva kick attempt is no good, but Sami kicks away another spear attempt, hits the haluva kick. One's all it takes for Sami to score the win, retain the title, and arguably get a really big upset over Bron Breakker. I'm going to give this match 3.5 stars out of 5. I know a lot of people, when I saw some of the online backlash from this, that you've ruined Bron Breakker because he lost one match. I get that because Braun's been looking really strong, and yeah, Sami only took one haluva kick to put him away. But I do think that's nice to have because in all combat sports, we all know sometimes it just takes one lucky shot to be able to knock a guy down enough for a win, and so I think that logic applies perfectly well to a match like this. Sami Zayn, he is the big underdog, but he's kind of like the winning underdog, and I think that's a really good place for him to be in here. And I think that story really came through here. I can't cry for Braun too much here because I'm sure he'll get a rematch down the line very soon and will possibly win it, or even if he doesn't, I'm sure he's got a very long, fruitful career ahead of him just based on his pedigree and what he does in the ring. He's just a very prototypical, idealized future WWE star in the making. And I don't see this as a huge step back for Braun. It's obviously kind of confusing when you think of what he has done up to this point. But like I said, sometimes you get that lucky shot. The host for the evening, Trish Stratus, makes her way to the stage to talk to the fans. It was really distracting to see those spy guys running behind her as she was talking because it felt like someone was actually going to run in and jump her from behind or something. Very distracting, but we don't get that. Instead, we get John Cena, who's making an unannounced appearance here in this show. And hey, if you couldn't read the towel that he's holding or the shirt that he's wearing, then his next words may have surprised you. But when he gets on the mic, he announces he is going to be retiring from WWE competition, and he's explaining that for the next several months all of these different pay-per-view stops are going to be his last. It'll be his last Rumble, it'll be his last Elimination Chamber, Mania in Vegas will be his last Mania, and so on and so forth. He puts over being on the first Raw on Netflix, and he talks about thanking the Canadian fans because even when business, whether it's good or bad, the Canadian fans have always been there, so Toronto means a lot to him. It was definitely unexpected for him to do this. I mean, Cena functionally retired many years ago. I think that's very clear, but for them to have this kind of official retirement run. I think that's a really cool idea for someone as big as Cena. I think he is somebody who deserves to have kind of a big, elongated send-off. We don't get too many of those in wrestling, and I think to have someone who's as accomplished as Cena is and as rarefied as he is, I think it makes a lot of sense. We know now that WWE is able to do long-term storytelling and booking these days, so if they have a year to work with John Cena before he's ultimately done, there's a lot of interesting things you can do with this. I think a lot of people are kind of going to the well of, oh, now maybe this is the chance for him to turn heel. I don't know if that's ever going to happen. Or, oh, this will be the chance for him to get that 17th World Championship and break Flair's record. And as much as I think that would be fine, I'd be fine if Cena broke the record, my gut's telling me that's not going to happen. But I mean, crazier things have happened. We will see with that. And then you think about the potential opponents Cena could have in his last year. I would love to see a blend of like having matches with people he has a history with, like a CM Punk, who alluded to something like that in his promo the night after Money in the Bank. Or hell, let's run things back with John Cena and Carlito, thinking back to that nightclub in Boston. Or, I'd love to see John Cena wrestle or work alongside guys like Carmelo Hayes or Bron Breaker, perhaps. Gunther versus Cena, Cody versus Cena. Or hey, here's a good idea for his last Mania matchup, John Cena versus Baron Corbin. But seriously though, who do you think will John Cena's opponents be? What do you think is going to happen for this John Cena retirement tour? What is your ideal path for John Cena on his way out? I'm really curious to hear what you all have to say about it in the comments. The Judgment Day are hanging out in the clubhouse. Finn Balor telling Damian Priest to punish Seth Rollins. Damian tells his crew that nobody gets involved here. Finn giving off a suspicious look that says, I may or may not follow those orders. We go now to the World Heavyweight Championship match as Damian Priest defends against the guy he beat for it at WrestleMania in Seth F. Rollins. Rollins, of course, took a couple of months off after WrestleMania, pulling double, technically triple duty at that show, and taking time off to heal his knee. By the way, remember that picture of he and Becky Lynch at the Kentucky Derby, and everyone thought that Seth got a haircut because of the way he was wearing his hat? And then when Seth comes back, like nothing about his look is different. The stipulation here is that if Damian wins the match, then Seth can no longer challenge for the world title as long as Damian's the champion. Meanwhile, if Seth wins, then Damian Priest must leave the Judgment Day. And then in the video hype package for this, they're playing this Priest clip where he says, I don't need the Judgment Day nearly as much as they need me, which is like, why would you say that openly about your own team? Like, I know that you are, like, they're priming him for a babyface turn officially, but just to say that openly, like, those are your guys, technically. Like, come on. Early on, Seth stops what he's doing just to look to the entranceway and call out Drew McIntyre and tell him to just get it over with already. Why are the fans chanting Undertaker during this matchup? There's a point in this match, I swear they're chanting Undertaker, and I'm like, are they doing that because, like, oh, there's the meme that Damian Priest is bisexual Undertaker? Rollins is all over Priest here, hitting the frog splash at one point, but we get a kick out. There's this one line here that Corey Graves said that made me laugh, where he says that, hey, mentioning past Money in the Bank winners and Carmella being one of them, and Graves says, oh, that makes me a Money in the Bank winner by marriage. And then Cole just immediately, just matter-of-factly says, not really. That was great. Priest takes over, just punishes Rollins for a while. They're trading strikes, and he's like, and fights back. Rollins is trash-talking Priest and tells him to be a man, Hulk. Priest responding with another slam. Seth hits the big superplex, the Falcon Arrow. Priest does not kick out, but the ref stops the count anyway. Oops, that's not good. Quick, play Drew's music and save us from this. We're getting the cash in. It's a triple threat now. Drew claymores Priest, then CM Punk runs in, and Cole makes a swear? Holy shit, it's CM Punk! Punk beats the hell out of Drew on the outside, getting some revenge on him for the beating he suffered in Chicago and the stealing of his special bracelet. He grabs the world title belt, blasts Drew with that too. Cole calls Punk by his government name as Priest hits South of Heaven to win and retain the title. Punk has not only screwed McIntyre, but Rollins as well. Priest is the winner, but does not look happy about this result. They show the replay of Cole freaking out at the run-in, which is pretty hilarious, but the damage has been done. And now Drew and Seth are both screwed. I give it 3 stars out of 5. And you know what? That botched kick out, it wasn't great. It was one botch, but like that was a pretty crucial botch, and I think that's definitely stuck in my craw. But I think the stuff with Punk and Drew is pretty well done at this point. Honestly, Punk getting injured at the Royal Rumble might have been the best thing to happen to him as a character, because it's really developed this great heat with he and Drew, and the fans are just dying to see an in-ring resolution with these two. And I get why people would be upset that the way the briefcase was treated on this night is a waste, because like that could have been used to build somebody else up. Like historically, the Money in the Bank, there's this perception the Money in the Bank is like specifically for elevating like newer talent. That's not always been the case, and I think they've obviously played with that trope a little bit. I think that I'm tired of seeing like months and months of like, oh, someone's got the briefcase. When are they going to cash it in? We just saw that with Damian Priest. And who knows how long we're going to get that with the winner of the women's match, which we'll get to. So I don't know if we needed another like 6 to 8 months of intrigue. Ooh, when's someone going to do it? Because we've seen it for so much now. It's been done to death. And I think if you just eliminate the possibility of a cash in on the men's side for the next year, I think that allows the opportunity for other more interesting and organic storylines to develop, because the Money in the Bank is such a cheat code. Let's break up the norm. Let's change the norm a little bit, and let's waste it for a year. It's there. It'll be there next year, and then we can do another long wait for a cash in. But for now, as long as for the purpose of the storyline that they are showing you with Punk and Drew, that seemed to make the most sense, and so the sacrifice makes sense to me. Well, up next, the match that was somehow voted both the best and the worst of the night by readers of the Wrestling Observer newsletter. It's the Women's Money in the Bank ladder match. Got last year's winner, Io Sky, Zoe Stark, Lyra Valkyria, Naomi, Tiffany Stratton, and Chelsea Green, who, much like I said when I opened the men's ladder match talk, I immediately said Chad Gable was the MVP of that match. I will do something similar here and say that Chelsea Green was the MVP of the women's match. I loved the story that she had in this one, just being afraid of heights and trying desperately to get up the ladder in spite of herself. And of course, how the match ends, which we'll get to, is a big part of my choice in this as well. But Chelsea was a delight to watch in this thing. This match was a lot of fun. If you like mayhem, car crash shit in your matches, then this is a kind of a match for you. If you like botches, then oh man, you're gonna love this one, because there is a considerable patch of time in this matchup where it's just kind of move after move where it's like, that could have been better. Like some cringe-inducing stuff that just gets missed or doesn't land properly, it seems like that. They're able to overcome Zoe hitting a Samoan drop on Lyra, but it looks kind of it's falling a little short. They're able to overcome Zoe doing this weird flip-de-doo over the ropes and getting nothing but the back of her head on the ladder. Just a rough couple of minutes in this thing, but they do get better. Stratton pinning Io in the corner with the ladder, walks up it, then diving onto everybody else. Chelsea's trying to pump herself up to climb the ladder, but she's cut off. Io hanging Lyra upside down on the ladder, stomping her. She climbs up, but then Lyra hits this tarantula German off it. That was crazy. Naomi is split in between two ladders, but she recovers, hits a DDT onto Stark. She starts bringing out tables from under the ring, which gets a huge pop from the Toronto fans. We see Chelsea and Tiffany work together to set them up. All but Naomi are in the ring now. We get more ladders set up in there. Zoe powerbombing Lyra onto a ladder bridge. Naomi is close, but Chelsea cuts her off. We get some kind of unpretty her on the ladder, but it looks not great. Io and Zoe on the big ladders. Sky hitting this sick Michinoku driver into the ladder bridge. It's Chelsea's big chance to grab the briefcase, but Tiffany climbs up and pushes her off as she plummets to the two tables on the outside onto the floor. Tiffany grabs the case and wins, and is your Money in the Bank briefcase holder. I will give it 4 stars out of 5 as well. Now look, we can all agree there was definitely a rough patch in this matchup here. For some reason, they all got hit with this ray that just made them kind of incapable of pulling off moves for a second. But they were able to recover, like I said. And it's not, for me, when I rate these matches, it's not like how perfect were you? How were you able to nail every single move on there? It's like some of it is contributed to like how well the moves are executed. That's a big part of it, but also there's the effort. There is the story. There is that car crash mentality that I kind of put myself into when I watch stuff like this. And brother, there was a lot of all that. as well. Yes, in spite of the botches, I think that the ladies here were just going nuts and pulling off some incredible stuff here. Like the men, I think, should also be praised for the stuff they did, but I think the women also really brought it in a lot of ways. Like I said, Chelsea Green, easily the MVP, because that is one terrifying looking bump, the way she fell off that ladder and just plummeting down a trust fall onto those tables was really fascinating stuff. Just a really fun match and really embodied the spirit of the Money in the Bank ladder concept. You know, I think the crazier shit you got in a match like this, the better it is for me. Even if it didn't like hit every single one of those spots 100%, like again, the effort was there and the stories were there and the rest of the action made up for it. So I can get why people said it was the best. I can get why people say it was the worst. But for it to hold both of those spots in one reader poll, I think is really fascinating. Backstage with Trish Stratus, who is immediately interrupted by Tiffany Stratton. Tiffany says social media is all abuzz about Tiffy time. Trish mocks her and says toodles. Tiffany mocks her back and also says toodles. You think you're special. In your main event, it's a 6-man tag team match as the undisputed WWE champion Cody Rhodes teams up with Kevin Owens and Randy Orton to take on the bad Bloodline. I'm talking about Solo Sikoa, Tama Tonga, and Jacob Fatu making his in-ring debut for WWE. This has been a really interesting evolution of the Bloodline in the wake of WrestleMania. We've been seeing it kind of precipitate and percolate all up until this point, where Solo kind of takes the spot as the top guy in the Bloodline in Roman's absence. He wants to be the new leader of the family. He brings in the Gorillas of Destiny. He brings in Jacob Fatu, and meanwhile Paul Heyman is just losing sleep and absolutely miserable in this trapped state he is in, trying to wrestle between both worlds of like Roman Reigns and his allegiance to him, and then trying to stay loyal to the Bloodline at large. It all paid off in this big thing on SmackDown where Heyman refuses to acknowledge Solo as the tribal chief, and so he is powerbombed into obligatory for his troubles. But I just want to say that I am very happy to see Jacob Fatu in WWE. I've been a believer in him since I first met him, working on the indies in California, working in the same locker rooms as him and seeing what he could do. I mean, now he's in better shape than before. Wrestling with shoes on, that's going to take a minute for me to get used to with him, but I think I'll adjust. But, all the praise, boy, they really dump the praise and the hype and the expectations onto him in this matchup in a big way. And sometimes you wonder if the hype meets the results. But I'm going to tell you right now, if you've never seen Jacob Fatu, that is justifiable hype, because he is so good, so talented, so agile for how large he is and all this stuff and the things he can do in the ring. And clearly they see something important in him, because, I believe that the comment Michael Cole makes in commentary about how much they had to pull strings with Canadian authorities just to get him to wrestle on this show, considering his past criminal record as a youth, really shows they're investing in Jacob Fatu, and I think that is so cool to see. And while I'm at it, here's a moment we shared last year in LA during WrestleMania weekend.
Zeus on right here.
Hey, congratulations.
I'm little Zeus. It's big.
Oh, yeah.
Big fuck you Solo chant as the match begins. The crowd loves them fellow Canadian Kevin Owens as he unloads on Tonga, telling Fatu to suck it. Orton gets in the ring, hits the draping DDT onto Fatu, who no-sells it because he is a beast. Cool moment of Orton looking a bit concerned once he turns around at that. Orton takes some heat for a time before he tags in Kevin Owens, who goes on a short run before he takes the heat. They're putting over in the story how scared Heyman was, considering, oh man, he ran with the Samoan SWAT team, he's ran with all these other no-good nicks over the years, and he's got reservations about the Gorillas of Destiny and about Jacob Fatu, and they make this line. Graves says, a criminal record was almost a job requirement for working at ECW. So to show you, again, they're really painting this picture of how dangerous these new guys are. I think that's very effective. Fatu finally makes a mistake, which allows Kevin Owens to tag in Cody for the first time in a long time. Big run by the undisputed champ. He dives into Tonga Loa on the outside, who takes a bullet for Jacob. Fatu is backdropped and takes the ringside doctor out in the process. Cody takes a spear by Solo, but he kicks out. We get a ref bump, Cody hitting the crossroads. The faces now have carte blanche to gang up on Solo because the referee is still down. Fatu comes back, destroys the ref some more. He's smooshed. More chaos outside the ring. Owens hitting Fatu with the giant prime bottle. Owens going for a pile driver in the ring, but Loa hits the worst low blow I've seen in a minute. Orton hits some RKO. KOs. Cody hits his crossroads combo on Solo until Fatu runs in. Cody has the wherewithal to let go of Sikoa, but not to get out of the way as Fatu dives onto him. Samoan spike to the Codester. The referee is back in, counting the 3 on Cody for the Bloodline to win this main event. I give it 4 stars out of 5. This is a very enjoyable 6-man match here. I think it told a lot of great story, not just like really showcasing Jacob Fatu, but also just painting this picture of legitimizing Solo Sikoa and the new Bloodline and really positioning him as a major threat to Cody here and really raising the stakes for that championship matchup at SummerSlam. Because when you have the babyface champion win like every single time out, that's how you get John Cena fatigue. It's how you get Sheamus fatigue. It's how you get Roman Reigns fatigue. So I'm totally fine with the undisputed champion who took an extra year to beat Roman Reigns. I'm fine with him being a little vulnerable and, you know, being taken out by this crazy beast in Fatu, and Solo kind of picks up the scraps in order to win. I think it's just a great story for the Bloodline. It's setting up that clearly inevitable return for Roman Reigns and a continuation of this new chapter in the Bloodline Civil War. But yeah, no real complaints about this matchup here. Maybe the hype for Fatu on commentary was laid on a little thick at times, but again, when you've got someone with as much potential as Jacob Fatu, who's so special in so many different ways, like you really can't do that enough, I feel. My grade for Money in the Bank 2024 is a B+. Another very solid entry here in the year of great pay-per-views we've had for wrestling across the board. Real fun ladder matches this time around. I believe that generally all the right people won on this show. And again, I don't have a problem with them wasting the briefcase so much. So I think that's kind of small potatoes for me. But boy, it just seems like I thought that decades ago, we as a society kind of agreed on like what the ideal ratio is for like a length of time for a wrestling show and how much wrestling you get. Like I remember for a long time, it was like, okay, 3 hours long, 7 to 8 matches, bingo, that's perfect. But now we're in this era where on one company, you get these like 4-hour shows where it's just wrestling all the time, which can be a little exhausting. And then on the other side, you've got this like 3-hour show, 5 matches, but a whole shitload of ads and hype packages. And yeah, the matches here do get a little bit of extra time, but I don't think you necessarily have to have that, on a pay-per-view. We've had short matches on pay-per-views before that are perfectly fine. They don't all need to be 15 to 20 minute whatevers. Also, I think the fact that both the Money in the Bank matches were like almost the exact same length of time within like 20 seconds of each other, I think is pretty hilarious. But like, how is there no in between? How are we going to get either a 3-hour mostly commercial for, the boys or vodka or whatever they're selling, or Tokyo Dome fucking Wrestle Kingdom every month? It's one of those things where there's got to be some kind of happy medium. I like AEW pay-per-views. I like WWE pay-per-views, but sometimes I just kind of want to go back to a format that it has the best of both worlds. But what did you think of Money in the Bank? What do you think of the briefcase winners? Let me know in the comment section below. Be sure to give the video a thumbs up if you like it, subscribe to the channel, hit that bell icon for all the notifications. And folks, I said it at the top of the video, and I'll say it one more time. If you've not watched Prestige Wrestling's Combat Clash PDX from this past weekend, I implore you to do so. It's available absolutely for free on their YouTube channel. And I'm not just saying this because I was doing commentary on it or I got kicked in the face by Evil Uno, but this is a show that's definitely worth watching. Folks, I'm Brian Zayn, and I will see you next time.